Hi, this is Clara Anderson-Sante, the Program Director with Gilda's Club Kansas City, free cancer support nonprofit in Kansas City. And with us today is James Merriman with the Mazuma Credit Union, and we're happy to have James with us to explain kind of basic budgeting 101. Go ahead, James.
Awesome. Thanks, Clara. Like she said, my name is James Merriman. I'm the Member Relationship Officer at Mazuma Credit Union. And what that means, Member Relationship Officer, is I look for different organizations and businesses to partner with in the Kansas City area, just to make sure to find ways to kind of support people in the community. And Gilda's Club of Kansas City is one of those that we really appreciate helping out, and it's been really a great partnership. So I'm happy to kind of talk about budgeting here. So I'm going to talk about budgeting first, and then we're going to get into a question and answer afterwards. So make sure to put any questions you might have in the chat. Also, I'll be asking for questions afterwards. So anyway, so budgeting, when we start talking about budgeting, there's a lot of feelings towards budgeting. Some people think, oh, it's restrictive, or, oh man, I can't spend what I want. And I want to kind of maybe change that mindset just a little bit and think of budgeting as actually freedom, because what you're doing is you're being intentional with every dollar that you make and every dollar that you have, and you're making sure that those dollars are working for you instead of you kind of being slave to that money, enslaved to those bills and that sort of thing. You want to make sure that you're the one that's deciding how the money you make is spent, and making sure that your goals are achieved. So one of the, I want to kind of talk about some of the goals that we're going to have in this program. And today you're going to learn how to use a 5-step plan to create and manage a budget. You're also going to understand different kinds of expenses, so the difference between needs and wants, that sort of thing. You're going to learn about how to how to set spending and saving goals both. You're also going to learn some different strategies to improve savings and manage debt. And you're going to have strategies to improve and maintain your financial health through this. So keep in mind that managing and improving your personal finances are very achievable goals. It might not always seem that way, and it doesn't matter if you have, if you make a lot of money or have a lot of money, or if you have a lot of debt or not very much debt. I mean, none of that matters. What matters is that you are the one deciding where your money goes each week, each month, that sort of thing. So let's talk about the what, the why, and the when it comes to budgeting. So first we'll talk about the what. What is a budget? The budget has a couple of meanings. It can mean an estimate of income and expenses for a set period of time. It can also be a financial roadmap, or a way to plan and track your spending and savings. Developing a budget can help you identify ways to reduce your spending and or increase your savings. For example, let's say you budget $300 for groceries. That's a budget. So why should you use a budget? A budget helps you see exactly what you are spending money on. It helps you determine how much money you spend on certain things such as rent and utilities. It can help you create a savings plan or allocate a certain amount of money for a specific purpose, and it can help identify ways to pay off credit cards or other debt. So when can you use a budget? Budgets can be used regularly to help you maintain good financial practices, or they can be used to help you achieve a specific goal, such as saving for anything that you would want, new car, saving for a new computer, just anything that you want. Having a budget and adjusting that budget when you have different goals is very important. So let's move on, and let's talk about the 5 steps to building a budget. So step 1 is getting organized. So you should always ask yourself, do you know where all of your important financial documents are? I keep mine in a little fire safe in my bedroom closet. Some of those could be like tax returns, W-2s, different bills, loan documents, that sort of thing. Also ask yourself, do you have a system to keep those documents organized so that they're easy to find? I've got little file folders. So I've got my bills file folder, I've got my taxes file folder, etc. As you guys those are some things to ask yourself. Also, where do you safely store these documents? Like I said, mine are in a fireproof safe. Some people have them in a file cabinet. Some people have them in desk drawers. Just think about those things, and like, are they in a spot that you feel safe with them? So step number 2 is to list your income. So ask yourself, do you know how much money you make each month after taxes? What that's called is your net income. Gross income is what your employer says you make. Net income is what you actually bring home. And that net income is what we're going to talk about a lot today, because that's the income that you actually get to spend. So then that could be from your wages, it could be from tips, it could be from any dividends you get, it could be from Social Security, it can be from any number of these things, just any kind of income that you regularly receive. So the third step would be to list your expenses. So you'd want to ask yourself, do you know how much money you spend each month? Most people don't. For the longest time, if a person would ask me how much do I spend each month, I would say I have no idea. Just however much I need to spend is what my answer would have been. Do you spend most of your money on necessities such as rent and car payments, childcare, insurance, groceries, that sort of thing? Or do you spend more of it on the wants, like your restaurant bill and your clothing and your entertainment? Step 4 is to list your savings. So ask yourself, do you have any money left over after your expenses each month? Also ask yourself, do you know how much you set aside as savings each month? And ask yourself, do you have any savings accounts or other methods of saving? So sometimes the answer is no, and that's okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to talk about ways to make that a yes. Also, we're going to talk about how savings is really just another bill. Think of it as another bill. You're going to pay yourself. So it used to be that I would think of savings as, if I've got money at the end of the month, then I'll save it. Then it became, you know what, I'm going to make sure that I spend in a way to where I'm paying myself a savings every month. And then lastly, it's about listing your debts. So you'll ask yourself, do you have any loans, mortgages, or credit card debt at all? Or do you know how much debt you owe? And that's another important question. So what I want you to do, if you haven't already, grab a pencil or a piece of paper or pen, and maybe a calculator. You may need that, and I'm going to give you just a minute to round those up here. So go ahead and grab those. Okay, hopefully you've had time to get those. Now, on your own time, maybe after this course sometime, or sometime when you've got some quiet time in the evening, look through these 5 steps and ask yourself, go ahead and write all those down so that you have a good understanding of where you're at. And some of the things you might say, wow, I am not where I need to be on those things. And that's okay. Just be honest with each one of those so that you can know where you start. So we're going to talk about Marta. Okay, Marta's a 40-year-old woman who works 2 jobs. One at a grocery store, and another she's a hostess at a restaurant. Marta often feels overwhelmed by her large debt, and she also paid bills late in the past. One reason is that her personal finances are not very organized. Let's see how the 5-step plan can help her better understand her options, her behaviors, and her solutions. So Marta has recognized that her old system of paying bills just wasn't working. She often missed due dates and incurred late fees. She decided, you know what, it's time to develop a system that would work effectively each month so that she can stay on top of her bills. She collected all of her paperwork that was related to her monthly income and expenses so that all her financial documents would be in one place. She decided to use file folders and a box dedicated to this purpose. She found a few recent months of pay stubs, bills, and receipts, and then printed her credit card and bank statements from her online accounts. So now we're going to talk about the required documents. So what I want you to do is just kind of think to yourself as you see this list, which of those financial documents would Marta need for her budget? Some of these she'll need, some of these she won't need. As you can see here, you've got loan statements, credit reports, receipts, tax returns, tax estimates, bills, deposit slips, W-2s, passport, credit card statements, credit card offers, financial institution statements, internet offers, pay stubs, and social benefit statements. So take a moment just to see which ones of those documents would be very important when it comes to creating a budget. And I'll give you just a few seconds to do that. I wish I had some sort of like elevator music for this time right now. Okay, so here are the statements that are going to be most important when it comes to budgeting. Loan statements, receipts, bills, credit card statements, any social benefits receipts, bank statements, and pay stubs. She needs her credit card statements, her bills, her loan statements, and receipts to show her debts and expenses. Marta also needs her pay stubs, bank statements, and any social benefit receipts to fully show her income. Once she's organized all that paperwork in separate and labeled folders, she has completed step 1 and has all the information she needs to continue to step 2 and through 5 of the budgeting plan. All right, so now let's look at how Marta's made a budget. As you can see, what she's done is she's taken her monthly income is $2,000, okay? Her total expenses are her needs plus her wants, as you can see, she's taken her needs, she's separated those, and then she's separated her wants. Then she's also put down what her debt payments are. So the first thing is, listing income. Income refers to the amount of money earned from almost any source. So any money that you regularly receive would count as income. So that could be paychecks, Social Security, anything like that. Tips. And I will add this, if you get some sort of tips or commission, things like that, I would always budget the least amount you would expect to get. So that way, if you make more, that's okay. But if you make less, you're not put in a difficult situation. So she's got $2,000. She gets paid, in Marta's case, she gets paid every 2 weeks, okay? She has no other forms of income other than that $2,000 that you see there. Marta's strategy for tracking her income to add up to her to add her pay stubs to determine her monthly income, and she listed in the income column. So if you get paid twice a month, then you would add, if you've got paid $1,000 on the 15th and then $1,000 on the last day of the month, then you'd add those together and it would be $2,000. If you get paid once a week, then you would actually take whatever your net income is per week, you would multiply that times 52, which would give you your yearly income. Then you would divide that by 12 so you know what your monthly income is. The other common way is some people get paid every 2 weeks. What you do in that situation is you take your income, your biweekly income, you multiply that times 26, that gives you your annual income, and then you divide that by 12 to give you your monthly income. Most budgets work best when you take care of them monthly, because most bills are monthly bills. So her expenses refer to the amount of money spent each month on bills and other items. It's helpful to think of expenses in those 2 categories we talked about, which is needs and wants. Needs are things that are necessary for your health and well-being, like electricity, transportation, mortgage payments or rent, groceries, child care, etc. Wants are things you can live without, such as dinners at restaurants, beauty products. Most of us can live without those, not everybody. Lottery tickets. Sometimes a want can turn into a need. For example, a new winter coat would be a want. But if your child outgrows their coat, then the new one becomes a need. So think of which of MARTA's expenses are wants and which are needs. So as you can see here, the needs, the rent, groceries, utilities, car payment, car insurance. The wants are the coffee, the restaurants, the entertainment, clothing. So the total amount of MARTA's needs were $1,220 a month. The total amount for her wants were $210. So that means her total expenses are $1,430. You may want to write that down. That might come in handy. So let's talk a little bit about disposable income. Disposable income is the amount of income left after paying all of your expenses. Disposable income is money available to spend on wants. So after you spend all of your needs, so you have your needs first, then anything left over, that's disposable. It is possible for the amount of disposable income to be zero, or it may even be negative. So creating and using a budget can help you find ways to make this amount positive in the future. So what is MARTA's disposable income after paying her needs? MARTA's total income is $2,000 and her total needs are $1,220. So her disposable income after paying for her needs is $780, which is that $2,000 of income minus the $1,220 that she spends in needs. So she can spend that $780 on wants, or she can put it in savings, or she can pay down her debts. So what is MARTA's disposable income after paying her wants? MARTA spent $210 of her $780 on wants, so her remaining disposable income is $570. So let's talk about savings. Savings refers to money that is put aside for safekeeping, or it's also a specific savings purpose that is set aside, or an emergency fund. Depositing money into an interest-earning savings account at a financial institution is one way to increase savings even further. So after paying her bills, which are her needs, and spending money on her extras, which are her wants, MARTA has $570 of disposable income left over. MARTA has been putting $100 per month into an interest-earning savings account. Her total savings will be $1,200 plus interest in 12 months. And that's $100 each month for 12 months. That's $1,200 plus the interest she'll earn. So how much disposable income will MARTA have after putting money towards savings? The correct answer is MARTA put $100 into her savings account. She has $470 of her disposable income left because she had $570. Now she's also dropped $100 into her savings account every month, so $470 is left. Let's lastly talk about debt. Debt is any amount of money owed to a person or an institution. Examples of debt could include car loans, credit card balances, and money borrowed from friends and relatives. Earlier, we talked about that MARTA indicated that she pays $200 towards her credit card and $100 towards her student loan. Keep in mind that loans and debt usually have minimum monthly payments that you must pay. We'll go into more detail about debt repayment a little bit later on. So what is MARTA's total debt? The correct answer is $7,700. After she pays her monthly debts, MARTA has $170 of disposable income left. What are some possible uses for the $170? So just take a moment and just think of what you could spend that $170 on now that we've already taken care of our needs, we've already taken care of our wants, we've already taken care of our savings, and we've already taken care of our debt payments. So some of the possible answers to that would be they put the full amount into savings. You could also put the full amount towards your credit card or student loan payments. You could spend the full amount on wants, Or you could apply the money towards a combination of savings, debt payments, and wants. So later, we're going to provide guidance on how to reduce debt. But first, we'll examine how Marta could better allocate funds for each category to help her be more effective with her money and improve her financial situation. So far, we've seen how Marta used a 5-step process to get her current financial snapshot. Now we're going to look at some ways Marta can adjust her budget and improve her financial situation. So now that we have an idea of what Marta spends her money on and how she saves, how much debt she owes, and how much disposable income she has left over, we can introduce guidelines to help her improve her budget. So there's many ways to help Marta, but we'll examine two: the 50-30-20 rule and the categories method. So first, we're going to start with the 50-30-20 rule. So that's where no more than 50% of your income is spent on needs. No more than 30% of your income is spent on wants. And then at least 20% of income is spent on savings and or debt repayment. And I want the terminology there is important. As you see on the 50 and the 30, that's no more than. And then on the 20, that's at least. So if you only spend 40 on your needs and you only spend 20% on your wants, then the other 40% is going to go towards savings and or debt repayment. So according to the 50-30-20 rule, how much can Marta spend on her needs? Now, keep in mind, I will go ahead and turn this back here. She makes $2,000 a month. So according to the 50-30-20 rule, how much can Marta spend on her needs? Go ahead and think about the answer for that. So the correct answer is no more than 50%. So $1,000 would be the most she can spend on her needs. So the way you calculate that is you take $2,000 in income times 0.50 or times 50% if your calculator has a percent function, and that will give you $1,000. According to the 50-30-20 rule, how much can Marta spend on her wants? So we'll go back and we see that she makes $2,000 again. Wants is no more than 30%. So 30% of $2,000 would be 2,000 times 0.30, or 2,000 times 30%. And that answer is $600 is the most she can spend on wants. So according to the 50-30-20 rule, how much could Marta spend on her savings and or debt repayment? Once again, $2,000 is her income. She can spend at least 20% of her income on savings and or debt repayment. So 20% of $2,000 is $400. And keep in mind, that's at least $400 should be spent on income, or excuse me, on savings and or debt repayment. So let's see how she's doing with her budget. So let's go back here. So she should have no more than 50% or $1,000 on needs. However, she currently spends $1,220 on needs. She might consider moving somewhere with a lower rent, or maybe trying to save a little bit on her groceries, maybe shopping around for a little bit better car insurance, or maybe selling her car and then maybe getting a more affordable car payment also. So $600 on wants. She currently spends $210. That's great. she may consider using the extra money to save more or to pay off more of her debts each month. So she's supposed to be spending at least 20% on savings and or debt repayments. She's currently right on target with that with 400. But like we just talked about, she had a little extra in once. Some of that can go towards more debt payment or more savings. So as you can see, the 50-30-20 rule may identify some areas where you should reduce spending, but it can also help you find additional money in your budget to put towards savings and debt repayment goals. So let's talk about another way to create a personalized budget, the categories method. This is the method that I tend to use most often, just because I can get a little bit more granular with each one of my expenses and each one of my bills. It's a more detailed breakdown of percentages and categories, and it allocates income according to the detailed needs of a person or a household. By thinking about the specific categories that you spend money on each month, you can predict how much of your income will be left over for savings and make adjustments to meet your goals. Here's an example of a categories budget. As you can see, 30% for housing, 10% for utilities, 10% for groceries, 10% for transportation, which would include your car loan, 10% for debt repayment, 10% for savings, 5% for dining out, 5% for car insurance, 5% for clothing, and 5% for entertainment. So what I'd like you to do is add up all those percentages, and what you'll see is that those percentages equal 100%. And the reason is because every dollar that you have in income should be allocated towards something, even if it's allocated towards savings. And then you know that every dollar that you earn, you are putting to work exactly as you want it to work. So referring to Marta's situation, remember that her income is $2,000 a month. So housing, 30%, that'd be $600 she could spend on housing. Which she does. Utilities is 10%. That means she could spend $200 on utilities. If you remember from the slide before, she spent $100 on utilities. Groceries, she can spend $200. She did spend $200. Dining out, she can spend $100, which is 5%. She spends $70 a month on that. Transportation, she can spend $200, and she does spend $200. Car insurance, she can spend $100. Well, she spends $120. Debt repayment, she can spend $200. She spends $300. Savings, she can spend she can spend $200 and she spends $100. Clothing, she can spend $100 and she does spend $100. And then entertainment, she can spend $100 and she spends $40. So you can adjust those categories easily just to suit your needs, because maybe you don't have a car or a car payment, then you wouldn't need to have 10% for transportation. Maybe you take the bus. You know about how much you're going to spend in bus fare. Maybe you do all of your transportation as a family member helps you out. Maybe you don't have any that you need for transportation. So just things to keep in mind, that when you're doing a categories method, adjust those categories to meet your individual needs. So with the categories method, Marta is going to need to increase her savings, which means she's going to also have to look for ways to reduce her expenses a little bit. The 50-30-20 rule and the category method are two ways to help you create a personalized budget. But next, we're going to talk about goal setting as a way for you to personalize your budget even further. So an important part of any budget is your personal financials goal. So setting goals helps you achieve financial strength, and goals don't just happen by chance. They happen through planning, patience, and commitment. Having goals helps people be more mindful of their spending and control bad habits such as impulse buying, because the goals are a reminder of their reason for savings. And this is one that it hits me personally because I can be a little bit of an impulse buyer. I try to remember, wait a second, I've created these goals because these are the things that I want to be able to achieve financially. And if I decide to spend $40 on a speaker that I see in the Walmart aisle, then that's $40 less that's going to go towards my goal later on. So these are things that, like I said, really hit me hard. And a lot of people I know, they hit hard too. So just keep that in mind, that when you're setting goals, it should help you maybe not do some of that impulse buying that you could be prone to. So if you take time to set financial goals that are meaningful to you, for example, saving for a new laptop or anything like that, then the small sacrifice of skipping the cafe on the way to work may become easier. With strong motivations, you will save money, not just because your budget indicates that you should, but because you have a specific goal in mind, something that you really want. Goals typically fall into three categories: short-term, medium, and long-term. Examples include saving money for items such as birthday gifts, a new car, or a down payment on a home. Most of your goals will be personal to your lifestyle and preferences, but we recommend including a couple of important goals. Number one, create an emergency fund. And number two, pay down debt if you have it. Emergencies can appear at any time. They include such things as car repairs, medical bills, or loss of income for you or your partner. Therefore, it is always wise to have extra savings set aside specifically for emergencies. So what I want you guys to do is just take a couple minutes to think about some of your short-term, your medium-term, and your long-term goals. And this is where that elevator music would be really nice. Go ahead and write those down also as you start thinking about them. All right, so as you look at some of those goals that you have, some people put retirement down as as their goal. Some people put down a new car. Some people put down vacation. Think about those goals that you wrote down, and do you feel inspired or discouraged to reach them? Do you feel confident that you could create a budget to achieve them? When you see your goals written down, they can be both overwhelming and inspiring. Having financial goals can help you plan by adjusting some of your current spending and savings habits. Goals can motivate you to change your mindset, behaviors, and habits. But if you have a lot of debt, your goals can also be discouraging. How can you even think about saving for the future when you currently owe so much money? So while debt can seem overwhelming at times, paying off debt and staying out of debt are achievable goals. We're going to examine two methods that can help you become debt-free. The first step in paying off debt is having a realistic picture of your current financial situation. Let's look at two different strategies to pay it down: the ladder method and the snowball method. So with the ladder method, you list all of your debts from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. Determine the percentage of income you allocated to debt payments when creating your budget, and then ensure that your monthly minimum payments are met for each debt category. After all your expenses are covered, consider using some of the disposable income you have left over to pay off the loan with the highest interest rate first. So another debt reduction method is the snowball method. With the snowball method, you list your debts from smallest balance to largest balance. Determine the percentage of income you allocated to debt payments when creating your budget. Ensure that your monthly minimum payments are met for each debt category. And after all your expenses are covered, use some or all of your disposable income to pay off the smallest balance first. And really, between these two methods, it's really personal preference. And the reason I say that is because there's a part of me that believes the latter method is the most financially responsible because you're getting rid of the high interest rate debts first. But what I've found out for me and my personality is when I can knock out balances, that's what really motivates me. So if I have a credit card where I have $1,000 on that credit card, and then I have a credit card with $500, and then I owe a furniture bill of $200. Well, even if that furniture bill is the lowest interest rate, if I can get that $200 bill knocked out to where then I only have the 2 credit card bills, I get extra motivated. So that's where that snowball comes in, because then you can just put more pressure each month on those larger balances after you've gotten rid of the small balance. And keep in mind that with both of these methods, it is very important that you pay your minimum payments for every debt you have. Do not allow this to keep you from paying your minimum payments because you don't want it to get you into credit problems. So which of these methods, do you think would work best for Marta's situation? So like many people starting a new project, Marta feels committed to it and excited about her financial planning. But as with any project, sometimes it is hard to maintain momentum. Let's look at some ways to encourage healthy habits. First, make sure you have daily, weekly, and monthly check-ins. Look and see how you're doing, and do it often. See how you're doing day to day, see how you're doing each week, see how you're doing every month. Meet with a financial institution representative. What I always say is get to know your banker. And if you don't have a banker, find a banker. And if you go into a bank, and regardless of what your financial situation is, if you go into a bank or a credit union and they don't treat you as if you are very important and as if your situation is very important, fire them and go find another banker. And then make sure to discuss personal finances with your financial planner. So be honest with the people that help you with your finances. Make sure that they understand your situation because they're there to help you. So keep those things in mind. So once you've created a budget, personalize it to your lifestyle and set your goals and become mindful of your money habits, it's essential that you have regular check-ins. So by keeping on top of your receipts, bills, credit card statements, bank statements, and debt totals, you should be better positioned to improve your financial situation. Compiling daily receipts, if any, and totaling them along with other bills each week can make tracking your monthly income and expenses more efficient. You should also review all of your bills and credit card statements to make sure there are no mystery purchases or mistakes. After writing down your goals and making plans to accomplish them, you may need help. How people seek advice from a financial institution or financial advisor about certain products that can help them meet their goals, such as retirement accounts. Others may contact not-for-profit credit counseling agencies to help them regain control of their financial situation. Don't feel like you're making sacrifices when you budget. Instead, think of budgeting as a way to keep you on track to meet your goals and to earn the things that you really want. So today we covered a lot of different steps, tools, and strategies, also behaviors that can positively affect your personal finances if used regularly. I encourage you to take the time to use these tools to improve and maintain your finances. So in summary, improving your personal financial situation is achievable with thoughtful attention, regular maintenance, and improved habits. Once you get a clear and honest picture of where your money is and where it's being spent, By using a budget, you can take steps to make changes such as reducing unnecessary expenses or increasing savings. Setting personal, meaningful goals helps you to stay motivated and on track in both the short and long term. Regular check-ins and seeking help from professionals are additional ways to become more informed and aware of your financial situations and options. So, with that being said, I'd love to open it up for questions at this time.
All right, let me get us all back. You don't have to turn on your video unless you would like to, but Bridget and Laura, you'll have to unmute yourself.